In The Things They Carried, author and war veteran Tim O'Brien invites us to experience what it's like to be a combat soldier in the Vietnam War. The book's a collection of linked short stories, but the way O'Brien tells these stories is extremely unique. Readers of The Things They Carried could be forgiven if they thought they were reading a memoir instead of a work of fiction. O'Brien follows the conventions of memoir within the novel. So, why does O'Brien intentionally blur the line between fact and fiction? The answer can be found in the title story, where O'Brien writes about what each soldier carries as he marches or humps in the jungle. There's the expected items, but also the unexpected. Take, for instance, the first lieutenant of Alpha Company, Jimmy Cross, a complicated character. Cross carries around the letters from a young woman named Martha. They're not love letters, even though he wishes they were. He also carries the burden of responsibility for the safety of the men under his command, as well as a deep regret for not being more forward with Martha about his intentions before the war. Like Cross, the other men of Alpha Company are also carrying guilt, shame, regret, the weight of memory. They're carrying, O'Brien writes, the emotional baggage of men who might die. O'Brien is after more than just authenticity. He wants to give us an experience through storytelling. And to do that, he needs to take liberties that only fiction can offer. That's why he blends the two. In the story Ambush, O'Brien focuses on the single death of a North Vietnamese soldier. When his 9-year-old daughter asks him if he's ever killed anyone, the character Tim O'Brien imagines someday telling her about the time he killed a slender young man of about 20. The narrator O'Brien describes how the enemy soldier passed him on the trail, and how he threw a grenade that exploded at his feet and killed him, leaving one of his eyes with a huge star-shaped hole. We can't help but wonder if the real O'Brien, the author of this book, actually killed this man. But we don't have to wait for long. Maybe 40 pages or so before O'Brien spills the beans in good form. We learn that Ambush is pure fiction. O'Brien writes that he didn't actually kill the young soldier, and he doesn't even have a daughter. Here's a war story that another soldier, Mitchell Sanders, tells the character O'Brien. It's about a small patrol that was sent up in the mountains to listen for enemy movement. Sanders describes what the men experienced at this remote listening post. As darkness closed in around them, they began to hear things that they logically knew couldn't and shouldn't be there. They heard Vietnamese music, then what sounded like a cocktail party in the jungle, complete with clinking glasses and conversation and orchestral music. The non-stop noise drove some of them nearly insane. Only after the men called in an airstrike did the sounds finally stop. Later, the men were reprimanded because it appeared that the mountain was uninhabited. Not telling their stories could be tragic too. In another tale from The Things They Carried, we watch Norman Bowker, one of O'Brien's war buddies, drive in circles around his hometown lake in Iowa on the 4th of July. Bowker has returned from the war and longs to tell his father, former girlfriend, his dead best friend, anyone at all his story from Vietnam. Unfortunately, he's unable to, and eventually meets a tragic end. The Things They Carried shows us how we can tell stories by blending fact and fiction, how we can discover different kinds of truth, and how redemptive stories can be. Truth might be stranger than fiction, but sometimes fiction is truer than truth.